One of the biggest things that developers struggle with is design. It's super easy to look at an application and know that it looks terrible, but it's harder to explain why. This episode, we're joined by Steve Schoger, co-author of the hugely popular Refactoring UI. We'll learn some design tips and dive into the story behind the book, as well as his other projects, Hero Patterns and Hero Icons. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the Ladybug Podcast. I'm Kelly.
I'm Allie.
And I'm Emma, and we're debugging the tech industry. Hey, Kelly, have you heard about this cool tool called AWS Amplify?
Tell me about it.
It's a suite of tools and services that enables developers to build full-stack serverless and cloud-based web and mobile apps. You get to use whichever framework or technology you want on the front end.
That sounds cool. Will it help me get up and running with things like hosting?
Yeah.
Authentication?
You betcha.
Manage GraphQL?
Totally.
How about serverless functions, APIs, machine learning, chatbots, file storage?
Yes to everything! Amplify is built especially in a way to enable traditionally front-end developers, like yourself, Kelly, to be successful because you can use your existing skill set to build real-world, full-stack apps that in the past would require deep knowledge around back-end, DevOps, and scalable infrastructure. The Amplify console also allows you to use a GitHub repository to deploy to a globally available CDN with CI and CD built in.
It's super cool. Where can I learn more?
If you want to learn more about AWS Amplify, visit aws-amplify.github.io. First of all, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. You're someone that I've admired in the industry for a long time, so I'm thrilled to be talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I guess we'll just jump right in. And could you just give us an introduction to who you are? Tell us more about your coding and design journey, and let's just hear it all.
Sure. So I'm a visual designer from Ontario, Canada. Many people know me as sort of the guy who posts hot design tips on Twitter. I post UI refactorings on YouTube. So I take a user submitted design that's kind of poorly designed and refactor. By the end of the video, it's all looking nice and polished, like something a designer would do. I most recently co-wrote the book Refactoring UI, like you said, with my friend Adam Wathan, that aims to teach design to developers. My journey into design, I guess it just sort of starts as when I was a child. I always had a general interest in art and design. I liked illustrating a lot when I was a young kid. If my mom needed a break from parenting, she was able to just give me some pencil and a paper, and I was able to spend hours drawing pictures of my favorite cartoon characters. In high school, I got really into music and playing guitar, and I always coming up with cool band name ideas and then making logos for them. And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do after high school. My art teacher, he kind of encouraged me to take this new course that was being offered at Fanshawe College in London, Ontario, which was called Multimedia Design and Production. It was a brand new program, and it was a really practical, hands-on program, which is how I learned best. And this covered everything from design. We learned a lot of Photoshop basics, a lot of the Adobe basics. We learned some video production, and then some web development. So it was kind of just a little bit of everything to get my hands dirty. And I mean, at the time, this is in 2004. So we were learning a lot of Flash, and Flash was still owned by Macromedia at the time. So super dated stuff that I had to relearn everything after I finished that program. Regardless, when I was taking that program, I was really drawn into the design stuff. I learned some basic front-end development, but I mean, a lot of that was relying on Dreamweaver to put a site together, which was fine. But it got me started in web. But yeah, I was really interested in making websites and putting that stuff together. But following that program, I took music industry arts, which is because I really wanted to get into the music business. And it was at the same college. It was kind of a hard program to get into. I applied to it the first time around and I didn't get in. But then after I had my multimedia diploma, they accepted me into the program. Following that program, I spent a lot of time interning at a few record labels, doing a lot of stuff I was doing from multimedia. So I was managing websites, and I was designing MySpace pages, which I really enjoyed, but I wasn't getting paid for anything I did because it was the music industry. So I did want to get a job in design, but I also lacked at this time, I kind of lacked the confidence as a designer. I understood a bit of web and a bit of design, but I didn't really get really great at either. I was just kind of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. So I just lacked all the confidence to do that. And this is also the peak. At this time, this is the peak of the 2009 recession. Mm. So at this time, I thought it was like really hard to get a job in anything. I thought not a bad time to go back to school. So I ended up taking advertising copywriting, just, to add to my list of things that complemented one another, but, they didn't, I don't think I was ever going to be a great writer either. But regardless, it was like a 1-year post-grad program that it was sort of set up to build your portfolio. Like I was making fake ads to go into my portfolio. And by the end of the year, you'd ideally get a job at an agency, which I thought I wanted to maybe do design. I wanted to go work in an advertising agency, making like doing the visuals for ads. But that year, I spent a lot of time working I spent more time working on the design for the ads, those fake ads I was making, as opposed to actually writing good copy. And that year, I learned a lot about typography, a lot of graphic design basics. And that was all kind of sort of self-taught, sort of I knew where to pick things up from what I previously learned. And I think this just reminded me that I really just wanted to be a designer. And I spent a lot of time working on my personal website to showcase these fake ads. But I also designed a lot of fake websites to practice design. Really just wanted to showcase my web design work in my portfolio. So I did, and at this point I was much more confident with my design work, and I just used that as my portfolio, and I started interviewing, doing informational interviews at companies, and that kind of landed me my first job. So, and then I've been doing that for about 10 years now. So.
Wait, your first job is the same company?
My first job was at a small web design agency in downtown Toronto.
Okay.
We worked on more marketing sites, a lot of flash games. What I was working on. Yeah, and then I ended up working at more like startups, and then I worked at different companies. I worked at sort of an educational company. We built e-learning software. And then following that, I got burnt out with that job because I was really dedicated to that job. I took my work home with me a lot, and I didn't like that. And I really liked working on my own stuff in the evening as well. But I had to get out of that job. I got a job at an insurance company, and it was sort of a job where I didn't really care if I got fired, to be honest. I'd work my 8 hours a day. But by the time my day was done, I wasn't stressed out, and I was able to work on freelance work or just my side hustles, right?
It wasn't challenging you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did that for a while, and it sort of built up. I started working on some little side projects, sort of start building my audience on Twitter, and I thought that might lead to more exciting, fun projects. And then after working at that job for 2 years and kind of doing that side hustle for 2 years, I kind of built up a little bit of a reputation, so I could kind of take the leap. And I at this time I met my friend Adam Wathen, the guy who co-wrote the book with, and he was kind of building a reputation within the Laravel community. And he started. He was friends with Taylor, who's the creator of Laravel, and he kind of recommended me to him. And Taylor gave me a few projects, and then he also worked at an agency called Titan Co., which is based out of Chicago, and Taylor and Titan, they both needed a designer, but they didn't need one full time. So we worked out something where I worked 1 week with Taylor, 1 week with Titan, and I had 1 week off to kind of do other freelance work or just do side hustles. And during that week off, I'd spend a lot of time just kind of building my audience more. And but it was a nice flexible position to be in, to do that, to work on side hustle.
That is a dream situation, especially, I've spent a lot of time doing the freelance projects and having those long-term solid clients that you can kind of work from and base your, your salary off of, essentially, and then still have that entire week to do your own project. That's amazing. Yeah,
it was a really nice. I'm really grateful for the guys for kind of setting that up, and it worked great for them because like I said, they didn't need a full-time designer, but it sort of kind of paved the way for me to I started growing my audience, but I also had them kind of helping me out through that process. So it was great. And then that led to after working with them for a while, I started building my audience. This is sort of tells the story of when I started working on the book. I spent a lot of time, people, I said, know me for the hot tips. I was starting to do those on Twitter, and they started getting more and more popular, and it turned into I started to realize I'm gonna I might work on a book or something. I had that idea a while ago, and the way they were pretty flexible in the sense that like they knew I was going to be working on a book, and I said I need some actual time off to finish this book. And about 3 months prior to finishing the book, I said, can I just have the time off, unpaid? And if the book doesn't do well, I can come back. If it does do well, like we can start that conversation again. So they're really flexible in that sense.
That's super great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious what your typical day-to-day like is now.
Right now, I'm kind of working full time with Adam. Like we did the book together, and that kind of gave us it gave me my financial freedom. Adam was already kind of working. He had already had success working on a few courses, like video courses. And but after the launch of Refactoring UI, I was able to just go full time doing my own thing. And the project we're working on right now is we're building, like Adam does. Adam's live, and he's mostly known for creating the Tailwind CSS framework. Like I said, he's been successful launching video courses on like Vue and TDD, and he does like a full stack. He does a podcast as well called Full Stack Radio, and he contributes a lot to the Laravel community. But we've been kind of working full time on Tailwind for the past year, on and off. Like I've been doing a lot of other things. Like I've been doing a lot more conference speaking this year, and that's worth noting too, because like I spent a lot of times this year just preparing conference talks, because like conference talks take me like a long time to make. Like just my process for making a conference talk is like writing a talk, like, and like kind of scripting it in a way, even though I don't like read it word for word. It is sort of a script because I'm kind of doing refactorings on stage, and it needs to be like laid out in a nice flow. So I spent a lot of time doing that this year. We've been working on Tailwind, and we're kind of going to be releasing another project together, like another commercial project that's sort of attached to the Tailwind framework. So Tailwind is sort of this, it's a CSS framework that takes like a utility first approach. So sort of the elevator pitch to it is like, if I wanted to, each sort of like CSS property has a class attached to it, and it has a sort of a design system attached to it. So let's say if I wanted to design like a button, right? It would be like, I decide in the markup, it would be like I'd have a bunch of classes, utility classes attached to it. So it'd be like text, white, background color would be like whatever color you define, border radius, and it had a bunch of utilities attached to it. And that is it's done pretty well. It's become quite popular, but still, people still want the components with that. Tailwind doesn't come with any pre-built components, so people still want that. So we thought that's a great way to sort of monetize that project. So we're building pre-built components. They're designed by me, built by Adam, and we've been working on that full time for the past 3-4 months now.
I'm excited for that, I've got to say. Like, as someone who works on design systems, like, that's thrilling to hear. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Do you use Tailwind? Have you kind of dabbled in Tailwind yet?
So ironically, I started an open source project for coding mentors called Coding Coach, and my lead dev is obsessed with Tailwind. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
As someone who runs the open source project, like, I don't actually develop anything. And so, like, I haven't used it, but everyone keeps coming to me like, have you used Tailwind? Have you used Tailwind? It's awesome. So I haven't, but I plan to.
A lot of people are a little turned off by it, like looking at it at first glance, like they see all those utilities in the markup and they say that kind of looks messy. But honestly, like once you start using it, like the only critics I find that are like, around the Tailwind are people who like have just looked at it and are played with it. But like once people use it, they're like, I can't go back to anything else. This is the way to write CSS. So I
think that goes without saying for most things. I mean, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, but you have to accept that learning curve if you're ever going to give like a valid opinion, I guess.
It's not even just like a learning curve. I feel like it's like a paradigm shift almost, right? Like things like,
yeah.
The thing is, like, we see JavaScript evolving a lot just because it's such a fast-paced programming language, right? But CSS doesn't really change very often. We had Sass come out, which is great, but then CSS variables came out. But now, Tailwind was the first big thing that I heard of recently. That was like the next big thing. So it's just a paradigm shift that people have to get used to.
Yeah, definitely. Tailwind sort of like made me more confident as a developer. Like I hated sort of managing two files where I had my markup in one file, then I had my CSS file, and just it got so messy for me so quickly, and I was so embarrassed handing it off to an actual developer. Where Tailwind, it's all just in one file. It's like it's pretty clean if you ask me when I hand it off, and it's like what I hand off is pretty close to what a developer would make in Tailwind. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I like it in that sense. Like Sass, when stuff like Sass came out, like that just made it even harder for me because it was just like more stuff to like put on top of this thing that I already don't understand fully. So
Right. All this syntactical sugar. Yeah, I totally empathize with that. But it seems like Tailwind is one tool that's helping bridge the gap between design and engineering. And for me, that's kind of what Refactoring UI did. And we'll get into Refactoring UI in just a second, but I want to quickly touch on hero patterns and hero icons because those are also two really cool projects that you work on. So could you just give like a high level overview of what those two are?
Yeah. So hero patterns is a collection of SVG background patterns. I sort of made that just to fulfill my desire to build things and put them out there into the world. This is a time when like I built that to sort of help build an audience because I thought it'd be like I thought it would lead to cooler opportunities, like I said. And I think making like free resources like that is it's a great way for any designer to create value, right? And prior to this, like I released like a free open source icon set. So I thought it was just like a fun project because there weren't a lot of resources out there like that at the time. Like there was like subtlepatterns.com, which is background patterns, but there's nothing that kind of utilizes like SVG. And SVG is I think it was kind of like still a little foreign to a lot of people, the whole technology there. So that was a fun project, and you know that it's still like a lot of people still visit that to this day. And I don't really update that site at all anymore. I want to start updating it again, but time. Heroicons, they're a set of SVG marketing icons that are they're sort of designed to be easy to customize with CSS. Like so, each SVG icon has multiple paths inside of them, and each of those paths has like a unique CSS class, so you can easily change the colors. So like you can define like an accent color to align with your brand. Again, I sort of made that to fulfill my desire to build things and put them out there into the world. These are
gorgeous. I just want to say, for those of you not watching, these are beautiful icons. And like, I haven't seen anything like this personally. We'll link it in the show notes. But the amount of detail in these SVGs is insane to me.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the coolest things about this in particular is we're so like, we visit a website and everything's always fantastic.
Yeah.
When it comes to icons.
Which is like.
So switching things up is amazing.
Yeah. And they like font awesome icons are sort of designed to be like more of like in a sort of like within an app, like a small icon. And then, but like developers will blow them up to be like 3 times the size, their intended size, and they look awful. I mean, thanks. Like, I mean, Heroicons, maybe you can relate, but it's just like, it's something I did a while ago. I'm not proud of them anymore. I think they're ugly, but they're like a little dated,
but I'm also just purely an engineer. So
yeah. But you know what I mean? When it's just like you work on something and you just kind of look back at your old work and you're like, ugh, I can't believe I did that kind of thing. So I've always thought about like just kind of discontinuing them because I really like the Heroicons name and I like that domain name. They're sort of like the hero patterns and the Heroicons. Oh. Yeah, and I really like the whole brand around that. Like I also have a few other domain names that I'm kind of holding on to for like other like hero resources and sort of building a brand around that.
Yeah.
And that's I really want to turn Heroicons into like a bigger like thing, like much more like where it has like multiple sets of icons but you know, time.
That's
like maybe I'll get to it one day.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's cool. And just, you know, I think a lot of developers understand why SVG is important, but they don't necessarily understand that as you scale them, the level of granularity can become more granular. Like all these simplistic, smaller SVGs are not meant to be as detailed as the larger ones. Like that's something we take for granted.
But Heroicons that was cool. Like that was like the difference between that project and Hero Patterns was I made Heroicons a commercial product. I thought it'd be cool to try and sell something. I think it made like $10K in the first week, which is like it's respectable for like a first time launch online. So I think it's made like. And that was before I had like a kind of a following, so it's kind of continued selling to date. I think it's like I launched it like 3-4 years ago, and I think it's made like $30K.
Oh my
So
gosh. This is
That's
just
amazing.
proof to anyone listening that like if you have something that you're proud of, you can monetize it and make money like passively and there's no overhead if you're doing like
yeah,
electronic goods.
And I think even to push it further, even if you're no longer proud of it, it's still going
Yeah.
to make you money.
well, it's just out there, and I don't touch it anymore. I haven't touched it since I launched
Yeah.
it, and that's nice, and it just kind of makes passive income. Yeah,
It's the dream passive income scenario. You literally don't have to do anything, even as far as maintenance goes. Like they're out there, they're ready for you. This is like the perfect idea for somebody who's looking to get into some kind of passive income stream.
Absolutely. So, okay, with that, I want to transition into one of my favorite books of all time. I distinctly remember exactly when I read it, sitting at my dining room table, and it was completely night out. But I sat there and I read the entire book from cover to cover in one sitting, and I am just like a huge fangirl of Refactoring UI because until I had found this book, I had struggled with design, and I still like my designers will tell you I still struggle with design, but not to the extent I used to. It made so much sense. And if, you know, it's not just a book. I want to say that, right? Like you have a series of blog posts and I'll let you like discuss that a little bit more. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, you just go to Refactoring UI, which we'll link in the show notes, and some of the articles that come up are 7 practical tips for cheating at design or how to use fewer borders and thinking outside the database. And so all of these are so practical and so actionable that they're invaluable. So do you want to just give a quick overview of what is Refactoring UI? How did you go about building it? What was that process like?
So yeah, Refactoring UI, it sort of aims to teach design to developers using like, you know, sort of aim to like use, like do design with tactics instead of talent. I mean, a lot of developers, they just want to make their stuff look good without learning all of the graphic design theory. They just want the clear, actionable knowledge that they can take and apply to the design right away. It's like instant gratification, right? The sort of the inspiration around Refactoring UI is I've been working with Adam for a few years, and like we've been working together for about like 5-6 years now. And early on, we started working on a few projects that will probably never see the light of day. But it sort of got like we realized we liked working with each other. He would always wear the developer hat, and I would wear the design hat, and we found ourselves working on design together a lot. And he was really interested in design as well. And the way Adam's brain works is that he'd really try to understand the design decisions I was making from like a very logical, analytical point of view. And like most designers, I was just more of like sort of the intuitive, creative type. And just the fact that I've been doing it for so long, I just sort of relied on my instincts to make a lot of decisions. And sometimes he would like point out something that I did that he thought was interesting, and he would articulate in a very clear, logical way and that made sense to me. Adam, like I said, he had a lot of success with his courses, with launches getting up into like the 6 figures in sales, which was really inspiring to me. And I thought I could make a book targeted towards developers, teaching them design in sort of that logical way that Adam approaches it. I mean, going back, like I'm like really at this time, like, I mean, this is back when I was still trying to build my audience, and Adam really encouraged me to grow my audience in that sense. And I always had the idea of like making like a book, but it's become like sort of this big project, right? Where it's become a series of blog posts and videos and tips. And that really helped grow my audience. And the tips just went viral. Like they went way bigger than I ever expected. That sort of became like the marketing engine for the book that we put together. At first, when I started making tips, I would be like working on a project, and I might like notice something I did a few times, and I'd be like, oh, that's a cool little insight there. And I took a screenshot of what I was working on and made a little, like wrote a little thing of like what I did and why I did it. And the first few did well. Like on Twitter, like I had maybe like 1,000 followers at the time, and like these tweets were getting like 40 or 50 likes, which was a lot of like Twitter engagement for me at that time. And then each one was getting bigger than the last. So eventually they're getting like 300 likes, 400 likes. And then and also like Adam started like getting involved when I was making like tips. So he might share like a little insight, and I would spend some time, like sometimes up to like a week working on it passively. So he'd come up with like a little tip idea, maybe that I didn't really think of like as a tip, but it's like he's a developer. He's like, oh no, developers like love this. They will eat that up. Where for me, like one tip he gave me was like, oh, like add like a little vertical offset to box shadows, right? And for me, I just always did that. I just thought like, yeah, everyone knows that, right? And he goes, no, developers have no idea, man. And I'm like, okay, awesome. So I made that a tip, and I put together something, and that blew up. That got like 1,200 likes when I first posted it. And I'm like, okay, there's like something here. And we kept on putting tips together, and sometimes we spend like 2 weeks on a tip, like from like the birth of an idea to like building, like they become much more polished after. It wasn't just me taking a screenshot anymore, but it was me like making an original little design to communicate that idea, right?
That's funny. And it's funny that box shadow was one of those things, because that to me is an enigma. Every box shadow I make looks terrible. I don't know how to use them, and I don't know how to make them look good. So that's
like developers would like do like equal spread around the entire like container, and it would be like a big
it's
heavy
glowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm guessing and like grasping at straws every single time I use box shadow again every single time.
It was funny. It was like when he pointed it out to me, I'm like, okay, there's a lot more stuff I know that I didn't think I knew, kind of thing. Anyways, like Adam was helping me so much that it only seemed fair to like form a partnership and co-write the book, and I think it turned out infinitely better because of that. But we wanted to kind of keep that marketing engine going. We did a blog posts together. And the first one we did was sort of like taking a site that someone sent us, and it was a Medium posting. Like, but at the beginning, it was the original design they sent us, and then we kind of go through the design step by step, improving it. By the end, it was like a nice polished design. And we thought we were going to do those like every week, but it took us so long to make that one. We're like, yeah, let's not do that again. And but we thought it'd be cool to like do that format in the form of a video. His idea for that was like you should just do like a live stream and like do a refactoring in like an hour, right? Or like an hour or two, right? But that didn't really appeal to me. Like I'm not really good at live streaming. I've tried it before. It's just like, especially with design, it's like me designing half the time, I'm just just sitting there thinking like, oh, what should I do here? And it's like, that won't be a really good live stream. But like, I thought, what if I do like a more like post-production, like a nice like 15-minute video where, I spend like 2 weeks making the like design and then kind of taking it from beginning to end, and then doing all this post-production, like adding music to making it like much more like a fun video. And those did really well. Like I knew like, I also wanted to spend a lot of time on it and making it really good, because I knew like I already started building a following. I already had like a newsletter of like 10,000 people on it at this point, and we are going to mail it out to that mailing list. So I wanted to be like really high quality, because I knew like it was going to get a lot of eyes on it, and if it was really high quality, it was going to even do better than that. And they did really well. Like the second video I posted, it got posted on Reddit. It got posted on like on Hacker News, and those went all viral. So everything was just working out great for us.
You have 157,000 views on this one. And for those listening, we're going to link his screencasts down below in the show notes. And I remember watching some of these. It's basically like Fixer Upper, but UI edition, and I love it. So highly recommend checking those out, because I think it's easy to sit and say like, oh, instead of a border, use, different spacing, or, different, like maybe use uppercase text and title case text to like section things a little bit easier. But to actually watch the process from start to finish is so fascinating.
Yeah, there's like little tips throughout the video, but it's just nice to see the design transform throughout the entire duration of the video, I think. So
absolutely.
Well, I mean, when it came time to write the book, like Adam and I, we like worked together. Like we spent a lot of time like working on an outline for the book. And when it came time to write it, the way the work was split up is Adam would sort of craft all the words, and I would put all the images together. And that was like a good equal distribution of work. And Adam was like, I think, much better at articulating the concepts than I was. And it was sort of like taking a lot of stuff that I knew and sort of filtering it through like a developer brain to communicate it better to developers. And but like there's also like it's basically also like a picture book. There's like 300 images in the book I think I put together. They're all like original designs. So it was a lot of work on both of our ends to put that together. But it took us like 3 months from beginning to end working on it full time. And it was exciting, and it's sort of like when we launched it was sort of this bittersweet kind of like I really like the process of making something, and when it's out there, it's kind of like, okay, what do I do now, right? And fortunately, Adam and I kept working together and working on other projects together. But at the time, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know we were going to be continuing to work together. I thought that was like, okay, we launched this and we're going to go do our own things now. So
wow, yeah, that's really cool, and I think that's super inspirational as well. I think writing an ebook in particular, because you don't do physical copies, correct? It's just ebook.
Yeah, like a lot of people want the physical copy. They keep asking, and it's
I would totally buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I know,
but that's a lot harder to do.
It is, and we are kind of thinking of making not just an ebook, but like more of like a web-based version.
Yeah,
that'll be like the next edition, because we have ideas for like a second edition of like we have a few new tip ideas, and we thought it'd be cool to like deliver it in like sort of like a web-based version where you can maybe we can include some animation chapters in it, and that would really lend itself to the web-based version. So
yes, please.
That's like sort of the next phase. But that's we got a few projects though that we're gonna put out there before we do that. So
awesome. Yeah, no, that's really cool. I'm looking forward to all of that. I would love to see a web-based version of the book, and of course, animations sound incredible.
Yeah, and it seems it's just more environmentally friendly, I guess, than a physical
absolutely.
book. Right?
Absolutely. I want to maybe switch gears for a second, and I want to talk about some maybe like tangible pieces of advice, like from a design perspective. So, like, first of all, like, what do you think? What areas of design do developers struggle the most with in terms of maybe like color, topography, spacing, things like that?
I think like spacing is always like it's probably the most common one. I feel like that's becoming less and less of a problem with when I see like developer design. Spacing is sort of like when you go to like a blog post of like the 5 ways to get good at design, it's like spacing is always at the top of those posts. And so it's sort of been drilled in the heads of developers that's like the problem area. So I'm starting to see that improve when I see developer designs. I think page width is a big one for me. So I often see sites with like, they have a 1280 page width, and like the paragraph text will stretch across the entire screen. And I think it's important to understand, like, it's okay to constrain your content, even though it's not gonna, like, just because you have the real estate on your display, it doesn't make for like an enjoyable reading experience if your eyes have to jump from one end to the other of your huge display. Another thing is fonts. Like, I mean, developers will often rely on like Google fonts, which are okay.
Yeah.
There are a few good ones for sure. It's sort of like font awesome. It's like you see developers just using it over and over and over again. I see that with fonts too. Like every developer will use like Lato or Open Sans, and it's just like I think it's really worth investing in a few good fonts or using a font service like Adobe Fonts or I think it's noticeable when you have like good original fonts,
Oh, absolutely. Like that it like sets certain websites apart. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's funny going back to like paragraph width. It's like as developers, we kind of forget that users exist sometimes because we're kind of far removed from users. Design has a much closer presence to them, and so we forget the fact that people's eyes get tired when they're reading long width paragraphs. Not only that, like if your line spacing is too condensed or like if your characters are too condensed, like all of these things affect the physical ability of someone to read. So while we do have the real estate, like you said, you don't need to use it. I feel like you should know how to efficiently use the space you're given without just trying to fill everything.
Yeah. What's like the recommended? So there's a recommended like amount of characters you should have on a line. It's funny, like it's like 80 characters or something like that, or but you know what I mean. Obviously, like there's like some guidelines, but
right. Well, I would love to ask you if you could give like a quick, not definition, but like as a developer when I was starting out, I didn't realize that design has multiple different areas, like the difference between UX design versus visual design. So could you briefly just tell our audience maybe what the difference is?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. A lot of designers are just like, yeah, I don't really know what the difference is either.
That makes me feel better.
No, I mean, there is definitely overlap. UI design is sort of like its user interface. It's sort of like the thing you kind of see and interact with. Like UX design is sort of everything. Like UX design is UI design, right? Like it is the UI is the user experience. But UX is sort of like everything. It's sort of like just the experience of like sitting at my computer, opening the browser before I even get to your site is part of that experience. And so it's just everything around that, right? And it's sort of like I think a good UX designer is able to almost look at the user's day and like say like, what does their day look like, and when are they like, and what do they do from like to get from point A to point B? You know what I mean? And that involves everything from like, I don't know. It involves everything from just like I said, like just sitting at your desk and like just browsing on the internet and taking a break and going to do the job that needs to get done. I don't know. Is that
Well, I threw you that curveball question. That was like a special one. I hate when people ask me those kinds of questions in interviews. So I guess I'm sorry that I asked you that.
No, it's all good.
No, I think it's, we forget that design is not making things look pretty. Having a nice looking UI is part of the process, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of psychology behind why things are done the way that they're done. When we think about UX heuristics and how people navigate throughout a user interface, and like, for example, if you take the process of checking out on a website, one of those is you want to have all the information readily available at every step of the process, so they aren't sitting there, if they're buying a flight, they're not questioning, did I pick the right date? Or, how much is this going to cost? Like, make that information readily available at every step, and making sure your information architecture makes sense. Like, these are very important things that I think as engineers, we are either unaware that this is important or that it exists, or we kind of forget.
Yeah. And like I said, like the UI design is important. Like it's like the visual design it's all part of that user experience. And, some things, I think if something's more beautiful, people are willing to spend more time with it, regardless of if the experience is like perfect or not. So
do you have any tips for a developer who is just starting out? They want to learn a little bit more about visual design. Maybe do you have any tips on when you should use a border versus like spacing, or maybe anything like that?
Like, let me just like look at my old Twitter tips that I can share.
I already figured this out once. Let me just refer back to what I said before.
Reusing content is the best thing to do. So absolutely. And also, we're definitely going to be linking to these tips as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just trying to think of like the most like radio friendly tips. Like some, like a lot of stuff is like I have to explain to be like with a visual sometimes. It's like, what's like a good radio friendly?
I know that's really hard. Like we just did, we recorded another episode about like algorithms and data structures. And do you know how hard it is to describe those things without having a visual diagram?
It's sort of funny when you go on these podcasts and it's just like, explain like design without visuals.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah. I mean, just looking at some of my tips here, some of my favorite ones are like, like using fewer borders. Like borders can make a design look really busy. I try to replace borders with like more space. You can also use like a different background colors to kind of distinguish two sections of a design instead of like adding a border in between them. If you have like a container that's on top of something, instead of like putting a border around it, like maybe just add a box shadow to kind of create that distinction between the foreground and the background. Another tip, like I see designers do a lot, is like don't use gray text on a colored background. Like when you use like pure gray text, like just basically like black, that's just kind of where, like instead of like something that's saturated a little bit, it always looks a little bit off on. Like so, if you use like gray text on like a blue background, it sort of looks kind of clashy. It sort of looks off. So if you have like a blue background, instead of making the text gray, like saturate with a bit of the background, so it's like sort of like has a little bit of blue hue in it, and I think it looks a bit cleaner.
I mean, you gave the tip about the length of text on the page. That still counts.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. Like just sort of being mindful of like your reading width, and when you read from like. Think about like when you're reading, when you read from like one end to the other, when you like jump from one line to the next, is your eye kind of getting really strained trying to figure out like what line you're on? One of my favorite tips is sort of inverting. It's an accessibility tip. it's sort of like inverting your background colors with like, let's say you have like a red button with white text on it. Sometimes it's like hard to get like good contrast ratios with that white text on a red button. Or even a better example is like lighter colors like yellow or green, right? Sometimes it's really hard to get like good contrast ratios with like yellow. If you have like a yellow button and white text, that yellow, to get like a good contrast ratio, it's no longer going to look yellow. It's going to start looking brown, right? So I find a good way to like treat that is like sort of invert it. So use like a soft light yellow background and make the text like, again, going back to that, using like a colored text on a colored background. So using like a darker version of that, darker shade of that yellow on top of the yellow button. I think that's, it's sort of like there's a double tip in there. Number one, it like looks better, I think. It helps get like good contrast ratios. In some cases, if you want to like de-emphasize something too, it's a little more subtle. So if you have like a high severity button, you don't want like that big red button like standing out more than your primary action on the page. Like if you want to like, if you're gonna like have a deactivate your account, it might be like a big red button, and that's gonna like overpower your like primary action on the page. You might want to de-emphasize it a bit. So again, using that like soft red background with the darker red text to makes it more accessible and makes it more aesthetically pleasing, I find.
Yeah, it's like, what is the most important thing on this page right now? And that's what needs to be emphasized the most.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome.
I hope that came across clear on the radio. I was going to say, it's like, I'm like, or at least is this being communicated clearly? Like,
it did.
Yeah. It made sense to us. So at least you had 2 listeners who got it. Yeah. So I have one final question for you, and that's where can we find you on the internet? Website, social media, shout out to whatever you want.
I can be found on Twitter at Steve Schoger. You can go to refactoringui.com. That's where we kind of share all of our refactoring UI resources. Refactoringui.com/book is where you can find the book. Like I said, I'm heavily involved in the Tailwind project, so you can check out tailwindcss.com. If you're interested in learning about that framework, you can check it out there. The components we're releasing for that project, which we're hoping to launch in February, is Tailwind UI. So it's tailwindui.com. And yeah, and I guess you'll have in the show notes, we talked about hero patterns and Heroicons. I guess they're all worth checking out. So yeah, that's all I can think of at the moment. I have a YouTube channel, so just
go check him out. He has like 30,000 subscribers. He's great.
Do I?
Wow.
Holy
yeah.
crap.
Oh, you didn't
know what?
that?
I don't. I don't go. Those videos like burnt me out. I stopped making them.
Yeah.
And, I want to make more. They take so long to produce one, and I'm not super active on YouTube, but clearly I should be more because
absolutely,
that's a lot of subscribers.
Awesome. So thank you, Steve, so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I know Emma's been fangirling about this particular episode for ever since it was scheduled. Let's say that. So yeah, thank you. Thanks again so much. And we'll have all these things linked in the show notes. So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you. If you like this episode, tweet about it. We're actually going to be giving away 1 copy of Refactoring UI. So we'll be picking 1 tweeter to win. And we post new episodes every Monday. So make sure you subscribe to be notified and leave us a review.